Hello and welcome. I'm Jenny, founder of Gentle Landmark and the host of Gathering Voices. This is your go-to podcast for real, raw stories from women who are out here building businesses, creating change, and making waves in their communities. In this episode of Gathering Voices, we're joined by Michelle, founder of Pantry Products. From discovering hidden toxins in everyday products to building a mission-driven brand, Michelle shares how she turned frustration into action, making wellness more accessible and sustainable. We'll explore the impact of plastics on health, the balance between entrepreneurship and motherhood, and how small changes can spark big shifts. Michelle's story is a powerful reminder that wellness is truly for everyone. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Michelle Zarka. I'm the founder and owner of Pantry Products, which is not a kitchen supply store, food store, which many think. Since 2015, we've been handcrafting natural skincare, body care, and wellness products using common ingredients that are often found in your kitchen pantry.
So let me get started with the whole. How did you get into this? What was your wellness wake up call or adventure to start this?
Yeah, so I always say I was an accidental entrepreneur, so I didn't start out intending to make a business and to have it grow the way that it did. I always like to make gifts from the heart for people. And so I was looking for, oh, what's the next thing that I can make? Gifts for friends and family, and was looking online and saw that I could reach into my kitchen and make, really nice feel good products, self-care products for people that I love. And so that's kind of what got me started. And then as part of that journey, the more that I learned about the products that I could make, the more I learned how toxic the products that I was using were. And that was kind of got the fire going a little bit where I was like, there has to be a better way. And so then I said, okay, well, I'm going to start making products. And then that grew a little bit more, I realized that wellness products and natural products weren't accessible to everyone. So they were targeted to a certain
Yeah.
demographic. And I felt that that was really unfair. And then I don't think that wellness should be a luxury item. I feel like everybody should have access to it. And so that was the passion that fueled me. I have to start this brand. I have to create clean products that are transparent. So when you pick up a product, you know that it's clean, you know what's in it, and that it's not only for the elite. Yeah.
Yeah. That's huge. So much of what is kind of out there as a general preface to all natural products is that they're more expensive. And I don't know, I think in the past it was more of a myth or something. But recently there's been a ton of greenwashing, especially with corporate companies. So you don't know what's real and what to believe.
Exactly. Yeah. And perfect example is I had a friend who I was staying at their house and she said, I went out and bought all these organic products and stocked your bathroom. And then I went in and it's a brand who has organics in their name. But when you turn the label around, it was this tiny little asterisk that said, oh, only these things are organic. And it was
Yeah.
full of fragrance and just really terrible things. And my friend thought she was doing great by buying these clean products, but the FDA doesn't regulate. And so they put it on the
Yeah.
consumer to really understand what they're buying.
And yet they don't offer any support in that either. Like I remember the beginning of my wellness journey and trying to go more natural, holistic products. I was all excited because I found Tom's. And I don't know. I later looked into it and I was like, oh, this is the mother company and they have all these other lines. How is that possible? And then further into the ingredients. And it was all just a lie. So I don't know if you have any tips or guidance in when trying to shop for eco-friendly or healthy finds. Do you have any specific places to look or how to tell what is actually natural that you can rely on?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing, and we always say, turn it around. If it has fragrance in it, it's bad. The way that the cosmetic and skincare companies and all these, fragrance companies have worked it is that they can put fragrance on their label and then they can hide all these toxic chemicals in there. And then they just say, oh, it's a proprietary blend. We can't tell you what's in it. And
Yeah.
so they just put all these super toxic ingredients in there that the consumer doesn't know. So step one, if you see fragrance, but the EWG app and website are the best thing So it's just the letters EWG, and they have an app, and you can literally scan a UPC code or enter in a brand name. And I'll just go and say, okay, I'm looking at this product line. Let's say seventh generation, who claims that they're
Yeah.
clean. They're not.
I
And you can
used to
put it
use
in,
them
it'll rate
too.
it. Yeah. And all the ones that you think, Method and Miss Myers and
Yes.
Lush even, they're not good. So so having credible sources that you can go to, which EWG I've been using for years, is great. There are a lot of companies out there, we even work with a few who do the work for you. And so, you know, if you're shopping with this store that they've already done the research, and so you can go to them
Yeah.
and they're a trusted source. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And so when I was starting out and I was finding that same thing where I was like, oh, I'm using Tom's, oh, I'm using Burt's Bees, and then you find out
Yeah.
who their parent companies are. I was kind of like, it's so frustrating to put that back on the consumer, to have to go and you can buy, okay, now I found this toothpaste from this company and I found deodorant from this brand, and you're having to shop all around. So with Pantry, I was like, I'm just going to make everything that someone needs, and
Yeah.
they can come to us and know that, we're going to be these five things. We're going to be clean. We're going to be transparent. We're going to be accessible, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But it's hard, if you don't have a pantry in your neighborhood, or you don't want to ship
Yeah.
online, or you just want to go experience it. Local co-ops are an amazing resource. So, if you're fortunate enough to have a co-op in your area, they're really good because, they have the same standards that we have as consumers, where we want to make sure it's clean. We want to make sure that, we're putting our money behind brands that support the same values that we support, which is another big one.
Yeah.
So it's hard work.
Yeah. We have one refillery shop in the area, and they just closed and they're going back to online. And I'm so sad because the closest one is at least a half hour away, which isn't that bad. And I think we're going to do that. But it's just you have to really plan out your time and your day and like when you need to go and stuff like that, which is unfortunate. But thank you.
Yeah.
Those were
And that's
really
the
fabulous
accessibility
tips.
issue. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you talked about plastic, and we all know that plastic is a huge thing that we have to deal with. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about that situation.
Yeah. I mean, and I will start out by saying that we do use plastic in some of our packaging. And it's something that we're looking to move away from. We do it from a safety perspective. So things that go, into your bathtub are things that are around babies and animals. We put those in plastic, but we're slowly trying to find alternatives using aluminums, compostable, different materials that aren't plastic. So I want to start out by
Yeah.
saying we're not perfect, and we don't try to be perfect. We just try to do our best,
That's
right?
the key though. Like we live in a society that true sustainability in terms of products, I don't think it's actually possible, unfortunately, because of just like all the barriers we have within like our societal norms.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for
So like you said, we're all just
that.
trying to
Yeah.
do our best.
Do your best, and even if, we package something in glass, sometimes it comes from our manufacturers in plastic. And so, but I'll get into why plastic is
Yeah.
bad. So, we know the old, don't use water bottles that have BPA. They're looking for BPA, and don't leave your plastic water bottle in the car. And the reason for this is that plastic leaches chemicals into whatever is inside of it. So if we think about leaving a water bottle in the car, it's hot, it's getting hot. It's basically turning into like a toxic soup, and it's full of
Yeah.
these forever chemicals. So BPAs, phthalates, and PFAS, which are basically these chemicals that get into our bloodstream, they get into our bodies, and then they live inside of us. And we're finding them in human tissue, we're finding them in blood, we're finding them in lungs, placentas, breast milk. Like, these plastics are everywhere. And
Wow.
it's just part of the breaking down process. And it's scary because these chemicals are, like I said, endocrine disruptors. And what that means is it leads to developmental and reproductive issues. It leads to an increased risk in certain cancers. And as humans, we have, as adults, we can make the decision, okay, I'm not going to use plastics. But as a mother, if I have exposure to chemicals that are plastics that are in my body, I'm then passing those on to my child. And that child doesn't even stand a chance of coming into the world without having exposure to these chemicals. But it's a part of everyday life. Like, you can't go through your day and not somehow encounter these plastics. So it's tough.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know how many years ago it was, but the news was all over about plastic and how we can't compost it. And I remember hearing or seeing articles and reading that it's in your food, it's in your soap, it's in all these miscellaneous products that is just like, what? It's just hard to fathom.
Yeah. And it's in things that you wouldn't even think about. So, we think, okay, I take out containers, plastic water bottles, those types of things, but it's also in if you get a takeout coffee cup. Those are lined with plastic to help the cup stay waterproof. If your kids eating applesauce pouches from the grocery store, those are plastic. And then things we don't even think about, like menstrual products, tampons and pads, diapers, they also have plastics in them that are touching some of our most sensitive parts of our body, and they're just absorbing them. And so throughout your day, even if you have only glass in your house, you're still being exposed to it in some fashion. And
Yeah.
so it's hard. So you try to do your best to just make those conscious decisions. Plastic's cheap. And so it's easy for manufacturers. It's also wasteful to produce. But as a consumer, especially these days where budgets are getting tighter and tighter and tighter, it's hard to look at something and say, like, even as a business, if I look at a plastic bottle, it costs me 80 cents. If I look at a glass bottle, it's going to cost me $2 to $3. Plus it's an increase in weight, so it costs more to ship. There's an increased risk of breaking. So it's hard to kind of make these decisions, but knowing, okay, if I have a decision and I can make this purchase, I can get, a water bottle that's glass
Yeah.
and reuse that in just these tiny little steps to just help reduce the amount that we are consuming.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm very much aware of our purchases and kind of trying to do my best, but my husband is not. So he came home the one day because we need more dish soap and he bought Mrs. Myers. Like, oh, but it's in plastic, babe. And like, we just need to go to the refillery. You should have like planned this out. And he's like, well, I've got this. It's fine. So we like finished it. And then even though it's plastic, I was like, well, I'm just going to reuse that to refill my soap into it so that at least it can live more of a shelf life rather than going to like the trash. So yeah, it's just about buying your best and just being mindful of it.
Yeah, and so in looking at choosing the best choice, it's going to be what's the best choice for you. And so when we look at our packaging, we have plenty of customers that come in and they want their hand soap and they want their body wash in glass. And I said, that's great. We have refill bottles. We can make that happen for you. If you want to buy online, we can do a glass upcharge and provide it in that. We have other folks who are like, yeah, I've got kids, I've got small dogs, I'm clumsy, which is my reasoning. I can't
Yeah.
put that in the tub because I'm going to drop it. I'm not going to have my glasses on and I'm going to be, in a tub full of shards. And so we just try when we look at products to see what the options are that are out there. So for instance, for a long time, we were making our deodorants and our sunscreens in a plastic twist up tube. And everyone kept saying, "Oh, you should do cardboard." I said, "Yeah, I like the idea of these cardboard tubes. The thing with those is they're $4 more a container per tube. Once you pour a wax or an oil into those, they're no longer recyclable or compostable. So it still goes into the trash.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that
and
aspect.
yeah. So there's because once an oil hit, like it's like a pizza box. Like you can't recycle pizza boxes because
True.
the grease on them messes up the recycling process. And so it's kind of the same with these tubes. And then from a production perspective, when we're pouring those tubes, if we were to spill, it stains the outside of the container. And then can we sell it? Will someone buy it?
Yeah.
And so we looked at, okay, well, the plastic is the best thing for us because of all these different reasons. And from a consumer perspective, it stays sealed. It doesn't leak if it gets warm. And then we just kind of waited until recently when a manufacturer came out with an aluminum one that has a push. The bottom is a cork. And so you push the cork up. When it's empty, you can clean it out. You can toss it into your aluminum recycling. The cork can go into your green waste if you clean off any of the wax. And it costs maybe $2 more a tube, but it aligns and it works well for that product. And so we're always trying to make sure, following trends in packaging and seeing what's out there that works with our products, works with our brand, and also still works with our price point.
Yeah.
Because again, we're still trying to stay accessible. We're trying to, make our products so that, and I realize not everybody can still afford a $14 hand soap. And I get that. We
Yeah.
offer bulk refills and we offer ways that our consumers can save a little bit here and there to make it a little bit more affordable. But just, yeah, we don't do any extra packaging. So we don't put a box in a box. We don't put a tube in a box. It's, what you see is what you get. And it's just one way that we keep costs down, that we keep our waste down. And then we're just always trying to continually improve and see how we can be a better brand for everyone, for the planet and for our customers.
Yeah, I feel like that alone gave me so much insight. I never even thought about a pizza box. So for our recycling, we put any cardboard, plastic, and papers, and we put our pizza boxes in there. I think it's interesting that there's a lot more to the whole recycling illusion, maybe, that we're actually recycling less than we think we are.
I mean, that's absolutely it. I mean, there's so many stories where they're taking your recycling, even here in Salt Lake, I wonder, do they take your recycling? Or are they actually recycling it?
Yeah,
And where does it go? It's floating in the sea somewhere on those giant plastic island. And there are definitely agencies out there that are doing their best. There's an amazing organization called Zero. Oh, I just blanked on the name. Zero
I
Waste
know
Box.
who. Yeah, I was just gonna say I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, and they're great because they literally take everything and repurpose it. But
Yeah,
your municipal and your city run recycling programs, you don't necessarily know. And so
yeah,
for me as a consumer and also as a business owner, I look at starting with the initial purchase. So if I'm going to the store, I'm going to buy something. I don't rely on recycling as an excuse for buying disposable products or containers. And if I do, like you said, with the dish soap, I think about how I can use that again later. So
yeah.
even in our shops, people can bring in empty bottles that they're not going to use, but they can leave them for somebody else to use for free. Somebody
Nice.
can come in and say, "Oh, I'm going to put my dish soap in this." But being aware and having that, don't always lean back on, "Oh, recycling is going to take care of this and I don't have to feel bad about it." Because again, it's really put on the consumers to make the decisions at the purchase point,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. It's very interesting the way we've set ourselves up as a community, as society, and the things that are mentioned and not mentioned. But as we move forward in this conversation, I'd love to hear you said you're a mom and you never necessarily expected to run your own business. So, what is it like from navigating the shift from a full-time entrepreneur to now being a founder and a parent? How is that?
Let's just say that. Like, whew. I give so much credit to parents out there more than I ever thought I would, especially the parents that have to work hard and have to really do what they have to do to make the bills and keep their kid happy, healthy, and sane. So it's a journey. I definitely give a lot of credit to my wife. At one point thought I could be a single parent, and I realize now that I mean, I don't even know. It's an incredible task to take on, but also so rewarding. But for years, when I was running my business, I have 20 years in corporate marketing. And so for me, it was always work, work, work. I'm striving for this goal. And
Yeah.
then when I started Pantry, I took that drive and I put it into my business. And I said, oh, I want to take out Gwyneth Paltrow. Like, I want to be the best of the best. And I worked for that and I put having a family aside and really, a lot of, personal life and things that I wanted to just focus on Pantry. And I had doctors who told me that I wouldn't be able to have children, and so it was kind of just put on the back burner as something that I never thought that would happen. And then I met my wife, and we went to some fertility centers, and they said, "Why not?" Um,
I love
so
that.
yeah, and just finding people that I think, especially in American healthcare, it's so easy for doctors just to be like, no, I'm looking at your age. I'm looking at, where you are, all these things. And no, this is not possible. And so I think never taking no, at least getting a second opinion or a third opinion allowed me at 46 to have a baby. Crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I feel fortunate that I can also share that with people to be like, I have friends that are in their 40s that are like, oh, I didn't think I could have a baby, but here you are. I mean, there's so many options out there if you really want to have children, like to make it happen. And hopefully it stays that way with our current administration. But anyway,
Yeah.
in looking
That's a
at,
whole nother
you
topic.
know, yeah, we could go on for days. But when I got the head nod that it was possible for us to have a child, I kind of took a look at Pantry and said, okay, do I want to keep chasing this dream? Or here's this really tangible dream that I've had since I was a kid. I can have a family and I can have all these things, but can I have both? And so I scaled back my wants and desires for Pantry and focused on having the family But in the last 2 years since Quincy was born, I'm finding that there's still room in there to make Pantry grow. Maybe I won't take out Gwyneth Paltrow, which I've come to terms with. But if you have the right support network and you set tangible goals, that I can still achieve these things while being fulfilled fully by having a child and a wife and two crazy dogs.
I think balance is key, and it sounds like you're figuring that out and you have a great support system. And I mean, like, what else could you ask for? So I'm glad that
I don't know, a few more
dream.
hours in the day, but yeah.
Well, I think we could all appreciate that. So in terms of what that looks like with figuring out that you do have that opportunity to still push a little bit more with pantry, what is that like emotionally, mentally with navigating how to manage it all?
I mean, it's definitely it's a kind of a tug of war where I want to do these things for pantry and I want to dedicate, I want to work 14 hours or 16 hours a day doing all the things. But I have this very real human in front of me who says, these are the things that I need. And so it's finding that balance between we put Quincy down to bed at night and sometimes I sit and work for 3 hours writing blogs, answering emails, developing products or whatever it is. And so it's figuring out how to get the rhythm of making things work. And it's not easy. And my ADHD brain, I've definitely learned that I need to take care of myself to help me achieve the things that I want, both at work and at
Absolutely.
home. And I don't necessarily always take all the time. Like I'm not doing yoga every morning. I'm not meditating and journaling and all these things that I wish I had time to do. But I'm also a very real person, and I admire folks that make that a priority in their lives and make it happen. But there are some things that need to give in order to make other things continue to grow, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm here. I don't even have a child, but I'm like, yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, we all
I,
have something, it doesn't, even if it's not a child, it's a dog, it's a set of house plants, it's a husband, it's, yeah.
so with motherhood, how has that taught you about like wellness, patience, presence? How has that helped you with your business at all? Or maybe just completely sidetracked, just like on a personal level?
Yeah. I mean, what has motherhood taught me? It's juggling. And I think going back to the ADHD, I've always been, a multitasker. And so I think having that is working out, to a benefit for me because I can be holding Quincy and be doing this. I could definitely be more present. And I think my wife wishes I was more present sometimes. And I'm like, I just need to do this real quick. And then while Quincy's having breakfast, I'm going to go answer these emails. But it's the awareness of that. Like I said, there's this person that needs your attention. And then it drives my work efforts where it's like, she's growing up. What do I want her to have access to and exposure to? And don't I want her to have access and exposure to? And it's given me a new group of people to identify with and to like feel that I need to help. When I was pregnant, all the things that women put on their bodies throughout pregnancy, the products that you're gifted at your baby shower that come from Johnson and Johnson, we've all received them, and spreading that awareness like,
Yeah.
please don't put this on your child. Please don't do these things. But making products and continuing to develop products that any parent can walk into our store and say, can I put this on my kid? And I can say, absolutely. As long as there's not, there's like there's some products that babies shouldn't have under a certain age, so honey is something that they can ingest under a certain age. And like some powders you don't want because they can breathe them in. But other than that, you can come into a pantry store and it's safe for every age. And so making it a place that parents can feel like, okay, I don't have to worry if this sunscreen is going to give my kid cancer in 5 years
Yeah.
because I know that it's going to be good.
Yeah.
So.
That's that's really beautiful. You're almost like a hero.
I'm not trying to be, but but
We've got
it's
super mom
it's
over here saving
yeah.
the day for other parents to make to make them feel confident in what they're using for not only themselves but also their children. And that's
We have so much going on as humans in general.
and
I get overwhelmed where it's like it's one more task. It's coming home from work and saying, oh my gosh, now I have to figure out what we're going to have for dinner. Or you go to the store and you're going on vacation and you want to get a sunscreen or you want to get a bug spray or whatever it is, a body wash, and you're like, but is this going to be okay? And just being able to have that one more thing that you can put off your plate and say, hey, I feel okay with this. And if I have questions, I always tell people, like, shoot us a message on Instagram, send us a message on the website, like, call, you're going to talk to me. That's the thing. It's not like you're going to go to Honest Company and you're not going to talk to Jessica Alba. Like, she's not going to tell you what's in her product. Another part of our accessibility is like, hey, you want to call and talk to a mom? Call me. You want to call and talk to a woman who's nearing menopause and who's almost 50? Let's talk. You want to talk to a queer business owner? Like, I
The
want to
perks of
engage
a
with
small
people.
business. Yeah.
Right? You can't get that. Yeah.
Well, Michelle, I thank you so much. This conversation has been super eye-opening and really beautiful to discuss on the different topics. Do you have any last words that you want to share or what's new for Pantry
Cool.
coming up?
Oh, so many things. I always like to share with people, and I think a lot of us know it, but sometimes it's just nice to hear it. And I've said before, like, don't try to be perfect, and don't look at people on Instagram and say, "I'll never be that person. I'll never be perfect. I'll never live the ultimate wellness, low waste, plastic free lifestyle." Like, it's unachievable. And you've said that it's unachievable, but
Yeah.
making conscious decisions that work for you, that work for your budget, that work for your family situation or your lifestyle is what's important. Doing things that make you feel better, educating yourself however you can. If it's scrolling TikTok for a few hours, maybe not for a few minutes, because we all know that's a downward cycle, but just trying to do the little things every day that contribute a little bit and
Yeah.
don't feel pressure. Starts with the swapping of one plastic bottle, the swapping of one toxic deodorant, and you get into a rhythm and it works from there. And then as far as pantry, we always have a lot of exciting things in the works. Sometimes I'm random and I just come up with things on the willy nilly, but we're looking at rolling out a small collection of vegan items. So all of our products are 100% natural, but some of them do use honey or they use beeswax. And so looking at doing some of our staple products, deodorant, lip balms, and a few of those as in a vegan line is definitely something that we're working on. And then just we have 100 products total, and so it can be overwhelming when you look at it. So trying
Yeah.
to make our products be, I mean, because our hand soap is the same as our body wash, it's the same as our bubble bath, it's the same as so making it so it's easier to just say, okay, I need a soap for these areas. I need an oil for my hair, but for my skin, but for my this. And so trying to make those simplified ingredients so you can just grab one thing and you can use it for everything. It's going to be more eco-friendly. In the long run, you're going to save money. And it's just one more thing you don't have to worry about having to
Yeah.
decide between. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. I think one for our consumers, but also for our production team. So they're not having to make 8 cents of lotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
That's
just continuing
exciting.
to, yeah, I think it's going to be fun. And just continuing to better the brand, and to continue to find more eco-friendly solutions, rolling out
Absolutely.
bulk online so that our consumers you can get your hand soap in 16 or 32 ounces from us, and we'll send it to you in a compostable bag. That way, if your local refillery sadly does close, you can still have some low waste in your life.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing and overall for this conversation again. I've loved every minute of it, and we'll stay in contact.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Gathering Voices. Don't forget, we release a new episode every month filled with more inspiring stories and heartfelt conversations. Stay connected, stay inspired, and let's continue to celebrate the voices that shape our world. Until next time, take care and share your story.